Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell in the upper right hand corner. Follow me on all forms of social media. Check me out at thatdrummerguy.com and enjoy the following presentation.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. You?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
No problem.
Oh, awesome. Well, of course, we're here to talk about the brand new album from Crazy Lixx, Forever Wild, coming out this Friday through Frontiers Music. I've gotten the chance to be able to check this album out over the last week and a half, and I just really love what's going on with this album. I love the diversity of what's going on here, you know, whether it's that great classic feel of Crazy Lixx or you guys are able to add some more variation to the dynamics of the sound. I just love what's going on.
Well, thank you very much. We're happy with the result as well, and I think from the reactions that we had so far, it seems that the fans do like it also. So really happy about it.
Oh, awesome. So, with that in mind, how did the songwriting process begin for this new album?
Well, first of all, we start quite early. The whole process takes more or less, I would say, 18 months from start to finish. So when we have a deadline for an album like now, spring 2019, I started writing stuff already in the winter of 2017. So it's quite a long process, and the reason for that is because we just like to do it quite organically. So we don't have a intense period of writing and then an intense period of recording. Instead, we try to make it so that the songwriting comes more naturally and organically throughout the year. But that also means that we have to start quite early. So, but the usual process is that I come up with an idea, and if I think it's good enough, I record a demo, which is often more or less a full production. I have like programmed drums, and sometimes I sing just made up words, so it doesn't have to be necessarily a finished version of the lyrics. But then I show it to the guys in the band, and like half of the times we scrap the idea, or at least put it on the shelf. So for an album of 10 songs, there's usually at least 20 songs written in total and demoed, recorded. But for those songs that we decide to go on to record, we usually then start to record the parts, and we polish the different instruments that are going to be recorded. So sometimes the demo recording and the final version are quite different, but at other times a lot of it is kept the same. So it kind of depends, but usually we get to work some on the instruments during the recording of it.
Oh, that's great to hear that it is done that way, too. I mean, being able to find that signature sound of what you have, and then also just, again, like Forever Wild, being able to just, show more the dynamics of what the band is all about this time around.
Yeah, I think we've done at least one or two songs that I think are a bit out of our territory, and I'm thinking about a song like Eagle, for example, which is both sound-wise when it comes to the amount of synthesizers that we use this time, but also the way that guitars play like single string notes instead of maybe distorted riffs. And I would say that the overall playing style and production is more reminiscent of bands like Def Leppard, for example. So that's a territory that we haven't been into in the past. But I think it all fits together with the other songs very well, even so. So I'm glad that we actually went out on a limb with some of these songs.
Yeah, definitely. And that's going to feel great when you're constantly writing songs and trying to come up with new ideas, when you are able to experiment, and it really does pay off.
Yeah, I mean, we still keep, we're confined to what I would say is, mainly like 80s and early 90s hard rock or hair metal or whatever you want to call it. So, but within that, I listen to a lot of different bands that are usually just shoved together in the same genre. But if you actually stop and listen, you can see that they're among those bands that were, derogatory called hair metal bands in the 80s. There's actually a lot of different musical styles going on. They just basically look the same. and therefore they were put in the same genre. But so I'm inspired by all of those, and among those, I can imagine that we could, do songs that are reminiscent of all these different bands, or inspired by all these different bands. So naturally, on one album by one band, that would make for a better diversity, I guess, on an album.
Oh, definitely. And for someone like me who does enjoy all of the different styles that was going around in the 80s throughout the early 90s, being able to see all those different bands like you were talking about, like different enough and sadly did get categorized as the same genre and same style, you can hear those different styles that are going on there. So when I hear an album like this where you are able to show that off and, show these different sides, it really does make for such a great album listen rather than just a collection of songs.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in one sense, it's a bit... it's a bit strange to do it like that these days, because what you should do probably is just release singles digitally. That would keep down the costs, and that's basically how most people listen to music now. They just add one or two songs to a playlist, and then it gets kind of shuffled in there. But for me, growing up in the 80s, some of my first albums that I bought for myself was in the early 90s, and I always kind of admired how those artists tried to put together an album that could be listened from start to finish, and that had this kind of balance to them. So that's what we're trying to do, even though maybe people aren't listening to albums that way as much anymore. At least among the young people, I think that they consume music in a different way than we're used to. But on the other hand, we do have a bunch of older fans who were born in the 80s and 70s and 60s even. So and they have another appreciation for this kind of album that's more balanced. So that's something that I always try to think about, not just putting together a bunch of songs, but actually making them work together as well.
Oh, very much so, and I definitely fall into that latter category. I mean, I always enjoy listening to singles, but I do love the album experience. I love knowing what's going on with that band at the time, whether they are trying to write a radio hit, whether they're writing the next great ballad, a great heavy song. I mean, whatever the case is, I like being able to hear that collection of songs in that timepiece for where the band was at. And again, just like going back with what's going on here for Forever Wild, I mean, it seems like everything's in a great place musically.
Yeah, I mean, and as I said, it's not a coincidence that there is this like sense of diversity and that they fit together, because we do, as I mentioned earlier, we have usually pick from at least 20 songs for an album, and those songs that aren't chosen for an album, they're not necessarily better or worse than the songs that actually end up on the album. But sometimes we have to decide between two songs just because they kind of fill the same spot on the album. So it would be strange for us to have a large number of ballads on an album. That would probably drag down the overall experience from the album. But it might be a smarter thing to do from a marketing standpoint, perhaps. But we're trying to think about how the album will be in its entirety, which means that sometimes even good songs have to make way for other types of songs just to get that kind of spread in between them.
Oh, absolutely. So, with that in mind, I mean, obviously with both ways people are consuming music nowadays, either just listening to a couple songs or listening to the album experience, I mean, what was it like trying to decide what singles were going to be released before the album came out?
Well, that's always a hard thing to do, of course. And it just so happens that the first three songs on the album became the first three singles as well. Even in the same order as they appear on the album. But that was not intentional, it just happened to be like that. So I think for the first single, our first idea was actually to do 3 music videos to each and every one of the 3 singles. That didn't happen. We didn't have the time to do the first one, so in the end there was two videos. So the first single was released just digitally, and it is also the opening track on the album. And I think for a track like that, people have been without a Crazy Lixx album now for almost 2 years. So when you release something new like that, you kind of have to give them this sense of familiarity, that they're on on familiar ground, so they don't they expect something to sound like Crazy Lixx, and that's basically what we deliver. At least I think that's a good idea, because you can sometimes scare away a lot of fans if you give them like the song that maybe sticks out from the album as the first single. That would be, I think, foolish. But as you say, it's hard deciding on the singles, and especially after that first one, we did have a lot of talks about which one was going to be. But we also had to think about video concepts at the same time, because since we had videos planned, we had to make it work with a concept for a music video. So those also factored in which songs we picked finally.
Oh yeah, and it totally makes sense, and I'm glad to see those first 3 songs were decided upon as the singles, because I think those 3 songs are a great representation of what the album is without giving everything away of what it's all about.
Yeah, I agree. As I said, the most maybe odd, or not odd, but the most different songs have been left to the ones that actually pick up the album. Whereas these 3 are quite easy to follow along with, I would say, quite direct, which I think is a good thing for a single. So as you say, we don't give it all away with these 3 singles, and I think people who have heard us before do get that sense of familiarity, that they recognize what it's all about.
Oh, definitely. So with all that in mind, again, with Forever Wild coming out this Friday, how does it finally feel to have this album coming out?
Well, for us, I mean, from when I first started writing the songs on my guitar, like a year and a half ago, I've heard them so many times. It's hundreds of times, during all of the process, and also the finished results, because we've been rehearsing them now for quite a while. So we have a sense of fatigue when it comes to listening to these songs. So we're very, very glad that we're actually finally going to play them live. This Friday we have a release party. So that will be the first time we play them live, and that will, I think, breathe some life into those songs again for us, because for the listeners that buy the album and hear the singles, that's of course very fresh for them, and it's the first time, but by that time we've heard them so much, so the excitement is quite, it's gone for us. But that all changes when you start to play them live and you get that feedback from the audience. So really looking forward to going into the next phase of with these songs.
Oh, very much so, and yeah, I mean, being able to finally play these songs live after sitting with the songs for so long, I mean, being able to do that and then being able to freshen up the live set, too, with new material, that's gotta be a great feeling.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've played more or less the same stuff now for the past 2 years, so, I mean, we changed it around a bit, but seeing as a lot of the shows that we're doing are festival shows, and those are quite, usually the set lists for us are an hour or shorter. That's like the standard thing on festivals. So with that in mind, and the fact that we have a couple of songs that we more or less have to put in the set list, because those are like, I used to say those are our Smoke on the Waters or Run to the Hills. We just have to have them there, or the audience will get mad at us, So when you have like 3 songs that you just have to have in the set, and then maybe you want to have like 3 songs from the last album that you've done, it doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room to change around. So it's really nice to have new material to kind of just fit in there, because it's very natural that you have some new stuff in the set list, of course, when a new tour starts. So definitely it'll shake the set list around, and we also have changed a few songs that we've had from the previous tour, also from the last album. So also among those, we'll play some songs that we've never played live before on this tour as well. So it's definitely a different set list this time around.
Oh, that's great to hear that, too. I mean, there's so many great songs, whether they're live staples or more B-sides in the Crazy Lixx discography. I mean, I'm glad to see that you guys are switching it around and showing off appreciation for new fans, old fans, and those that really dig deep into the catalog.
Yeah, and I mean, for us, it was a bit difficult for a while, because for many years, our first album in particular, but also our second and third, were quite hard to come by. And the first one wasn't even released digitally. So we have been leaving out a lot of songs from those albums from our live set due to the fact that people haven't had the chance to listen to them. They were now reissued this fall, so we're gonna be we're gonna check out how people will react to that, and maybe in the future start adding some really old songs from those first albums as well. But what we've come to experience in the past was that people just didn't recognize them, well enough, because it was so hard to actually get to listen to them. So we do have a lot of really old material that we might shake up the set list with as well.
Oh, that is so cool. And yeah, I'm so happy that those albums are getting reissued. I mean, there's some amazing material on there, and if that can expose people who either came about with Rough Justice or with Forever Wild coming out on Friday, being able to check out the previous albums getting reissued and being able to appreciate those albums as well, that can only be a great thing.
Yeah. I mean, I love it when I find an artist and then I find out that they have a back catalog of like 7 albums. It's just like, all right, it's like when you find a new series or something and you get into it at season 5 and you can just like kind of binge watch all the previous seasons. So I figure that if people find us now on this album, I bet there's a lot of stuff that they would probably appreciate off of our previous albums as well. So as you say, I'm also very happy that they're actually out now, both digitally and physically. You can get them.
Oh, very much so. So, again, with that in mind, I mean, obviously with the new album coming out this Friday, with the reissues available, with being able to do an album release show coming up on Friday as well, what else should people expect from Crazy Lixx coming up this year?
Well, from what we've announced now, we have as you say, we have the release party, and then after that, actually, our festival season starts off the weekend after in Belgium, and then we have a bunch of festivals planned during the summer, and some of those are quite big festivals. So we'll be playing our biggest festivals to date. So that's really something awesome that I'm looking forward to. And then we have announced also that we're going to Japan at the end of September, which is right after the festival season kind of ends. So we'll be going for 2 shows in Tokyo and Osaka, and that will be the first time that we visit Japan. But then afterwards, we actually looking at different options, what to do during the fall, and we haven't decided really on which what kind of tour we're going to do at that point. We have had a lot of requests from the US, but I think it's not feasible to think that we could do it this year with all the work that is involved in getting the work permits and visas and stuff. I imagine we're a bit late to do that, but we're definitely looking into it for early next year, and we'd love to come back to the US. That's a big market for us as well. But for now, it's the festival season, and then the Japan trip. That's what's officially announced, so to speak.
Oh, fantastic. And yeah, in 2020, I mean, I would love to be able to see you guys come back here, but even before that, I mean, the fact that you guys are this far along in your career and you're still able to play territories that you haven't played before, like Japan, I mean, that's got to be such a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, Japan has been a good market for us for a very long time, but the costs of getting there are, of course, very big. So this is actually the first time that it made some kind of financial sense to go there and play some shows. And with the reception, because the album is already out in Japan, actually, it was released I think a week ago there, and we've gotten some great reviews and also good reception from there. And I imagine that a lot of fans have been waiting for this. So I think if all goes well, it might mean that we could maybe do a bigger tour in Japan in the future as well. But for this time, it's, as I said, we're breaking a new territory when it comes to the live shows there. So we're doing 2 shows now, and that'll actually be the first time in Asia for us, because I haven't been in Asia myself even, but also the band has never played there. So really looking forward to that.
And with that said, obviously with something new to look forward to, like being able to play in Asia and, of course, Japan, but Asia in general, what's it like for you to be able to tour with Crazy Lixx? I mean, whether it's playing here in the States or doing the summer festival circuit in Europe, I mean, what's it like being able to play those different kinds of shows?
Well, I really prefer the festivals. Not that I have anything against the club shows, but for me, it's the biggest kick I have gotten is always from those kind of outdoors festivals, preferably on a warm summer day, and the best feeling is when it's getting dark outside as well. That's when all the lighting and smoke comes out the best. So for me, the festivals are really something special. But then, of course, a club gig is usually more intimate, and especially afterwards, where you get the chance to meet fans in a totally different way than on a festival. So they both have their ups and downs, but I would say that generally I prefer the summer festivals. So really looking forward to that coming up now. But I think it's a good mix that you do them both, because maybe it would take away the magic from the summer festivals if you just did that all the time. Now you're kind of looking forward to the summer season, which is quite short. But those usually leave a lot of good memories from those festivals.
Oh, for sure. And it's great to see that you guys are able to experience both. I mean, of course, traveling around the world, but, being able to do the festival shows, being able to do the club shows, doing the headlining shows, doing more support slots. I mean, whatever the case is, the fact that you guys can be that versatile and always put out an amazing show, that's what it's all about.
Well, yeah, I think so. And I've actually, looking back, I've just recently gotten, satisfied is maybe not a good word, because I think you should never be really satisfied. You should always strive to become better. But I think that for just a few years now, I've actually been at a point where I'm happy about the way that we sound and look on stage. And, for a very long time, I have felt that there was something lacking in that area. So, whereas I think our studio products have always been, quite good, but we haven't been able to kind of catch up when it comes to the live performance. But that's something I think that we've done now with the new lineup, and I'm myself, I'm feeling more comfortable in the role of playing bigger shows as well. And I don't think that we would look misplaced on a very big stage, and that's actually something that we will try this summer. So I hope I'm right about this, but I think we're ready to go to that stage now.
Yeah, and it definitely sounds like the perfect time to go see Crazy Lixx live. I mean, with the new lineup, the brand new album, that rejuvenation of being able to have a new album to promote. I mean, throughout 2019 and 2020, I mean, it just sounds like a perfect time to be able to see you.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. And I mean, we get that all the time, people who have seen us maybe 5 or 6 years ago at some festival, and then they just, happen to see us again. And we get a lot of comments how they're quite, surprised by, they usually had lower expectations, and that's something awesome. When you break people's low expectations, that's the best feeling you get, because for someone who hasn't heard you at all, of course, they don't go in with any expectations. But for someone who has kind of decided that you're not something for them, but you change their minds, that's really awesome. So I do think that we have grown in that area, and some people who haven't seen us for quite a while, they definitely see that change as something very sudden and very obvious. So that's really an awesome feeling when that happens.
Oh, very much so. And I think with that, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you very much for taking this time to be able to talk to me about everything going on in the world of Crazy Lixx. And of course, the brand new album, Forever Wild, coming out this Friday through Frontiers Music. I love this album. I love hearing how excited you are about being able to perform new songs live and let the Crazy Lixx fans, new and old, being able to experience everything that's going on. And it was just awesome being able to talk to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for liking the album. We're very happy about all the response, as I said. So it's a really cool time now when 2 days until the album drops, and you're just kind of getting it all in. It's been a lot of work to get to this point. So we're kind of just basking in all the positivity that's coming our way now, which is awesome.